Most toxic people don't look for weak targets, they look for emotional access. They search for people whose emotions they can influence, whose peace they can interrupt, and whose reactions they can predict. Because the moment someone can control your emotions, they begin controlling your focus, your energy, and eventually your decisions. But there's one thing that quietly destroys their influence. Not anger, not revenge, not proving them wrong. It's emotional independence. The moment you stop giving people emotional control over your inner world, their power starts disappearing. And what frustrates manipulative people the most is not rejection. It's realizing they can no longer affect you the way they once did. Today, let's talk about why emotionally detached people become impossible to manipulate, and how silence, boundaries, and self control change every relationship around you. First, manipulators study emotional patterns. Most people think manipulation begins with lies or pressure, but it actually begins with observation. They watch what upsets you, they notice what makes you defensive. They pay attention to your insecurities, your fears, and your emotional triggers. Every emotional reaction becomes information. The more reactive you are, the easier you become to predict. And once someone can predict your reactions, they can slowly shape conversations, situations, and conflicts to keep you emotionally unstable. This is why some people repeatedly provoke you. They are testing what controls you. But the moment you stop reacting emotionally to every comment, criticism, or accusation, the pattern breaks. Suddenly, they no longer know how to reach you, and uncertainty makes manipulators uncomfortable. Second, calmness removes their advantage. People who depend on emotional control expect instant reactions. They expect you to argue. They expect long explanations. They expect emotional chaos. But calm people become difficult to influence because calmness creates emotional distance. When you respond slowly instead of impulsively, you gain clarity. You stop speaking from emotion and start responding from awareness. And awareness is dangerous to controlling people because emotionally aware individuals notice manipulation early. They recognize guilt tactics, they recognize passive aggression, they recognize emotional games disguised as concern. And once you can see manipulation clearly, it loses most of its power. That is why emotionally mature people rarely rush to defend themselves. They understand that not every accusation deserves a response and not every conflict deserves participation. Sometimes silence protects your peace more effectively than words ever could. Third, distance changes everything. One of the biggest mistakes people make is giving unlimited access to those who repeatedly disrespect them. They continue answering every message, continuing every argument, continuing every unhealthy cycle, and toxic people become comfortable when they know they can always reach you emotionally. But distance creates consequences. The moment you stop being constantly available, people are forced to experience your absence instead of your attention, and absence reveals value. Some individuals only recognize your importance after they no longer have easy access to your energy, your kindness, or your emotional support. This is why boundaries are powerful, not because they punish others, but because they protect you. Healthy boundaries are not loud announcements, they are consistent actions. You stop over explaining, you stop tolerating repeated disrespect, you stop allowing people to drain your emotional energy without accountability. And slowly, people realize they can no longer control your emotional state whenever they choose. Fourth, silence creates psychological pressure. Many people fear silence because they mistake silence for weakness. But silence becomes powerful when it comes from self control. When you refuse to argue unnecessarily, manipulative individuals often become uncomfortable because silence removes the reaction they expected. No emotional explosion, no desperate explanation, no attempt to prove yourself, just calm distance. And that calmness forces them to sit with themselves. They begin questioning why their usual tactics no longer work, why you seem unaffected, why they can no longer pull emotional reactions out of you. Silence shifts attention away from defending yourself and places attention back onto their behavior. And many toxic people struggle when they are no longer controlling the emotional atmosphere. Fifth, emotional independence changes your mindset. People who constantly seek validation become easier to manipulate because their emotional stability depends on outside approval. If someone praises them, they feel confident. If someone criticizes them, they feel broken. But emotionally independent people stop handing strangers control over their self worth. They no longer need everyone to understand them. They no longer chase acceptance from people committed to misunderstanding them. And this creates freedom. Because once your confidence comes from within, manipulation loses its strongest weapon: emotional dependency. You stop begging for respect, you stop chasing closure, you stop needing constant reassurance from people who continuously disrespect you. And strangely, this confidence often changes how others treat you. Because people notice when someone becomes emotionally grounded. Sixth, emotional discipline is real power. Many people confuse power with dominance, aggression, or intimidation. But true power is emotional control. The ability to remain composed under pressure is rare. Anyone can react emotionally. Anyone can lose control during conflict. But staying calm when someone is intentionally trying to provoke you requires discipline. And disciplined people become difficult to manipulate because they don't surrender their emotions impulsively. They pause before reacting. They think before speaking. They protect their peace carefully. And over time, this emotional discipline creates confidence that cannot easily be shaken by criticism, disrespect, or negativity. Because confidence built on inner stability is stronger than confidence built on external approval. Finally, walking away peacefully is sometimes the strongest response. Not every battle deserves your energy. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. Some people enjoy conflict. Some people only feel powerful when they can emotionally disturb others. And trying to change them often drains your peace more than it helps. This is why emotionally intelligent people eventually learn an important lesson. Closure does not always come through conversation. Sometimes closure comes through distance. Sometimes growth requires leaving environments that constantly exhaust your mind and emotions. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is quietly remove yourself from situations that no longer respect your peace, without revenge, without bitterness, without needing the final word. Because peace becomes more valuable once you understand how rare emotional stability truly is. At the end of the day, manipulators lose power the moment you stop feeding their need for emotional control. When you stop reacting impulsively, they lose predictability. When you create boundaries, they lose access. When you become emotionally independent, they lose influence. And that is why calm people are often the hardest people to control. Not because they are emotionless, but because they no longer allow others to control their emotions for them. So protect your peace carefully. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not everyone deserves unlimited explanations. And not every conflict deserves your participation. Sometimes the strongest response is calmness. Sometimes the strongest response is distance. And sometimes the strongest response is silence. Because real strength is not found in controlling others, it is found in controlling yourself.